Hello and welcome to a very special presentation from In the Money Media and First Racing. Pegasus Day is here, and we've got a great team to talk about the biggest races on the day. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale. Happy to be joined by Nick Luck, Randy Moss, and Jerry Bailey, who you will be seeing a lot more of on NBC this weekend. Coverage starts at 2:30. And the team always does such a good job. Even when I'm at the races, I record it and come back so I don't miss their excellent work. Make sure you tune in and see what it's all about. We're just going to dive right in, getting a little bit of a sense of the scene down there. There's a little bit of a Sesame Street vibe here. Which of these things is not like the other? And that would be Randy Moss in full black tie regalia. Looks like he's so excited about the Eclipse Awards tonight that he's already there. Randy, what's up? What's going on?
I'm not yet at the Eclipse Awards. I'm getting ready to leave. I'm at our hotel pool. As you can see, there's nobody at the pool because it's like 58 degrees in South Florida or something like that. So anyway.
Let me break out the world's smallest violin for 18-degree Brooklyn here. I am dressing for the weather I want, not the weather I have. It is supposed to be beautiful on Pegasus Day. That's important. Speaking of people who look like they don't usually look, but typically Natalie attired, Nick Luck has apparently just been out jogging.
Yeah,
what's his excuse?
It's the Don Stoffer Trail. I can't resist it when I'm here.
See, it's so cold. I've got my fireplace on, Pete.
The fireplace going in Florida. There he is, the Hall of Famer, Jerry Bailey. Great to see you guys on these airwaves. This day has quickly become a really great day on the American racing calendar, a combination of a party and terrific racing. What we may lack in the incredible star power of its earliest years, superstar power, we gain back in terms of competitive racing. Jerry, for you, what's this day really about, and how excited are you heading into the 2025 version?
I just come every year for the entertainment. Forget about the races. I mean,
I don't believe you for a second.
Honestly, it's the same routine for Randy and I every year. We prepare on this year. We started early, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Do the show on Saturday. I'm out by 6:34, and Randy's off to the entertainment. I'm sitting at dinner by the time he has his first drink, listening to the music.
Jerry is burning rubber to get out of the parking lot as soon as we go off the air.
Where do you stand, Nick? I know you're a man who's been known to enjoy the festivities at Racing or Two, your exploits at the California town. Well around you and Shabuzi getting down on stage there. You pumped for the after party as well as this great day of racing?
I like Jerry. I'll be out by 6:34 a.m.
I don't believe it.
a.m.
Oh, well, it's good.
I stepped on you there.
I think it's a great day. And even though those first few years were, as you said, characterized by an Arrogate or a gun runner, the race has changed in nature, changed in purse, changed in complexion, and with that you get a much more competitive field, much better betting race, and that kind of is a marker of the whole card, really. I think it's got a bit of everything, and also because the entertainment through the afternoon is so immersive. The singer, whoever it is during the afternoon, or the DJ during the afternoon, or whatever, is going to be cheek by jowl with exactly where Randy and Jerry are sitting. You can't avoid. If they're bringing a Miami crowd into the races to watch whoever it happens to be performing or whatever, you can't avoid the racing. It's not like you rock up at race 11 and watch a concert. I like that. I like that immersion. I liked it at the California Crown. I thought it was clever.
It's a great point. I do remember, like, when I was young, and they'd have big concerts at Belmont Park, but it would be an evening thing after the racing was over, and it would be the horse players are leaving and the people are coming in. And what First have done a great job of is integrating the two. I thought you did a great job characterizing the day, along with Aiden Butler, Nick, an appearance on your Nick Luck Daily podcast this week about how successful that's been. And it definitely gives us a chance to show our best face to a new potential target audience, and hopefully it's going to be a big, successful day. Of course, it's always a more successful day when you can get some winners thrown into the mix. And that's where we'll turn as we start to look at this Pegasus World Cup turf, a race that has not as, I guess in other years, we've had a bit more participation from overseas, but this year we have something we haven't had in the past. And Nick, I'll come right back to you and ask you if you know why this day hasn't been part of the Appleby program in the previous few years, even though he's successfully raided pots from seemingly every corner of the world. But this year, clearly an important spot early in the year on his North American dance card. Is this just randomness, or is it a concerted effort by Appleby and the Godolphin team to target this big day?
I think they would have brought horses here if they'd had them right and suitable at the right time of year in previous years. Charlie doesn't miss much in the American program book, and that's pretty much all him. He drives that. He really enjoys it. He enjoys picking through and finding the right spots for horses. If this race was run anywhere else, or in Europe particularly, or maybe in the Middle East, I think this would be fine for Nation's Pride. But I think a mile and an eighth round here is going to be a little on the tight side for him, trip-wise, and maybe track-wise. So I'd be inclined to take him on at the likely odds, I think.
And there's also that last race. I mean,
well, I'd give him a bye for that, because that's the second consecutive year where he's gone to Bahrain with nearly the best credentials and run horrible. I don't know what it is. It's a perfectly nice track. He's run pretty much everywhere else, but he just doesn't seem to like it there, and he didn't the previous year. So I'd give him a bye for that. But I think round here he might just want a little bit further now.
Randy, what are your thoughts on the Pegasus World Cup turf this year? Are you also trying to beat this favorite, Nation's Pride?
Yeah, let me let Jerry weigh in for a second on Bahrain, because he had a chance to actually talk to William Buick about how poorly the horse has run in his 2 races at Bahrain.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So, I had a lengthy conversation with William a couple of weeks ago, and it's a head scratcher. He said he thought he was the best horse on paper going in, but now that he's done this twice, 2 years in a row and poorly there, they're going to chalk it up to not running well right-handed, which they do at Bahrain, and he runs well pretty much everywhere else. So they're kind of putting a lot through it and assuming that he runs left-handed much better, doesn't really prefer for the right-handed nature of the Bahrain course in that race. And it was on him in morning works not long ago, and he said he's back to his old self. So he thinks he will run well.
That's great.
I do share Nick's opinion, though, that at 6-5 or whatever he's going to be, that's probably pretty accurate. I think he's, coming off of that race and at Gulfstream for the first time, I think he's a decent horse to take a shot against.
In terms of who the main dangers might be, Nick, we'll throw it back in your corner of the screen here and get a thought on who you think is among the most likely winners.
Is there anything wrong with Mi Hermano Ramon, who, although you couldn't say he's improving necessarily as a 5-year-old, his numbers suggest he might still be. The distance should be about right. The run behind Johannes has got to be pretty good in this spot. I thought he might be the one to be interested in.
Mark Glatt's worth pausing on, Nick. And, I may be overthinking it here because he's obviously a very talented trainer and he wins a ton of races back home. But he has done some shipping to other jurisdictions so far without success. It was the one thing that gave me pause if he's a horse that's going to be bet. But, I mean, the form case is right there on paper. Like you said, I mean, if Johannes were in here, what price would he be, right? So, I mean, I definitely see where you're going with that, with that angle. Randy, how about you? Who are you thinking about in here?
Hey, Nick, say that horse's name again.
Well, I thought it was Mi Hermano Ramon. Is it?
Oh, yeah. There's something inherently cruel about a guy with a British accent trying to pronounce a horse with in a Spanish accent. I love it. That's the way I would call his name. Yeah. There you go. Look, to me, the top 3, and I'll rank them in this order, in terms of their chances to win, not value, just percentage chances to win, would be Nation's Pride, Integration, the 2 favorites, okay, and then Chad Brown's New York bred Spirit of St. Louis. who is a New York bred in name only. He's by Medaglia d'Oro out of a really good female family. He's lost only twice in his last 8 starts. One of those times was in a stakes where he was given 6 pounds to the winner and got beat a nose. And then he ran against Carl Spackler in More Than Looks and had a wide trip and was second and going after Carl Spackler coming down the lane before he got past at the very end. Look, and he's 20-1 in the program. I'm convinced he's going to run 1, 2, 3. So I think Spirit of St. Louis is the key to betting for value in the turf.
Yeah, if you can get the third most likely winner by your reckoning at that kind of price, you can see how interested you'd get. Jerry, are you with Nation's Pride here, or do you just think he's a contender that must be addressed and you have a different idea of the winner?
So I agree with Randy. It's Nation's Pride on top, integration right behind. Look, that's why the jock's on the horse. He knows it's a mile and an eighth. He's going to probably try and place him a little bit better, which you can do this horse. And he negotiates left-handed turns just fine. I think William Buick puts him a little closer, or if he doesn't get there early, he moves a little. And the horse is able to. He's tactical. You can do what you want when you want with this horse. So I still like him better. Forget about the odds. Maybe he's too short of a price. But Mi Hermano Ramon, I liked him as well, Nick, until I talked to Mark Glatt. And he said this horse does not have a very quick turn of foot, and he's ready on the outside of horses. That's not a recipe for success in turf racing at all. So if you like Johannes, you like Mi Hermano Ramon. But with knowing that information, he's probably going to have a wide trip, and he's going to have to be lucky with traffic because he doesn't have a turn of foot. And to Randy's point, Spirit of St. Louis, Major Dude. Let's see. There's 2 or 3 others that I could put.
Yeah.
Run for the money.
Sure.
Run for the money. Gets a great trip. He's going to sit just off a slow pace or set the whoever gets the trip of those 4 will run the best behind Nation's Pride and Integration.
All right. Jerry's got this exact doped out for us. Nick, did you have another thought on the Pegasus World Cup turf before we pivot to the big one?
Not really. Not that hasn't already been covered.
Great. Let's do it then. More time to talk about the race that gives the day its name. Field of 12 expected to go postward. We've got a former Breeders' Cup Classic winner in here in the form of White Abario. Jerry, do you think he is as good of a horse? That horse that we saw a couple of years ago winning the Classic, do you think he's still in there, or is this a different beast now?
I don't think he's that good. And I were talking this morning. To me, it comes down to 3 things in any race. If each of these horses run their best race, who's the most likely winner? White Abario in there, Saudi Crown's in there. White Abario is actually the fastest. And then which horse is likely to get that trip in any given race? I don't think White Abario is on his game. I don't think he's likely to run one of his best races. I think Saudi Crown's just as fast as anybody, and I think the race sets up for him. I think Locked is just behind Saudi Crown, maybe on even terms, but I don't think he gets as friendly a trip. I think he's probably going to have to go 3, maybe 4 wide on each turn, and I think it's hard to overcome that. So, yes, White Abario is capable of winning, but I don't think he's in his best form.
Saudi Crown, certainly an interesting contender. Looking at any kind of pace map, I think you're going to see him loose or close to it. My question about Saudi Crown, Randy, and this is something I'm sure you've looked at plenty as a figure maker. It does seem like, numerically speaking, the horse's best efforts come with the addition of Lasix. Will not have Lasix here. Is that a concern for you about Saudi Crown, and how do you evaluate his chances?
I'm hardly ever even look at that anymore, Pete. I'm so out of it now. Because so many of these horses just go on Lasix, come off Lasix, and so many of them, it doesn't really make that big of a difference too. So I'm not really considering that in my handicapping here. I do agree with Jerry on both counts. First of all, White Abario, I thought he regressed in his last start. He didn't break slowly. If you watch, he broke just a touch sluggishly. But it's not like he broke really substantially slower than he did in his first 7 furlong race. He just went out the back. He had no speed. And even though the track was faster for the Mr. Prospector, than it was for the allowance race that Guadabario ran before that. Okay. And even though he's way back in the pack conserving energy, his final eighth of a mile in the Mr. Prospector was slower than it was in the allowance race. I thought he definitely regressed. Now, if you're a sheets guy, if you're a pattern player, you might say, okay, second start after a layoff, he fired big first time off after the layoff. He's due to regress, and now he's going to bounce back. You know, that's not really my cup of tea. But I didn't like his last race very much. I do think Saudi Crown is the horse to beat. I want to see what he goes off at. I think he might be the favorite. And what I'm most concerned about is Frankie Dettori inside of him with Mixto. I think Saudi Crown has more natural speed than Mixto, but as Jerry and I were talking about this morning, Frankie can get pretty aggressive on the dirt. And Mixto has speed and he has the rail. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Frankie, kind of get after him a little bit, leaving the starting gate. Nick, you know Frankie a lot better than I do.
Yeah, do you think that's a plausible scenario, Nick?
Well, came off the phone to him just before we started this, and he definitely feels that he's live in a lot of the key races on Saturday. He's got his game face on for sure, and he's looking forward to riding this horse. He thinks he's legit. And I hear what Randy's saying. See, you always go into a Pegasus thinking you don't want a slow horse who has too much ground to make up. But
right,
Senor Buscador nearly won this race last year because they went crazy. Yeah, and it could happen again. It could happen again because there's only one way Guadabario is going to be competitive, and that's if he does get going. And Safi Joseph was making quite a cogent case for him to me on the podcast this morning. Saudi Crown, he can only do that from where he's drawn. And it's a bit much more reliable. And the horse on the inside is going to drive forward. And that's why I think that I completely understand what Jerry's saying about Locked. I actually think Lock could get in a little more readily than perhaps we imagine. And he's got a few horses of less obvious talent directly down to his inside as well. So given that he's the horse that's moving, though it is, I do think he might be the one to beat.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen that John Velasquez grinding into it from, not necessarily the front, but grinding into it from mid-pack or a 3-wide stalking kind of trip? If the pace is there that you guys are describing, that does make me see him as a bit more likely of a winner in this spot. We have to talk about the Derby winner, don't we? Mystic Dan making his return to the races. Randy's tipped his hand here. That was not pretty out there in the Malibu. Is it a sign that he's just a finished product, or was that maybe a trainer making a bid for an Eclipse Award for himself and or his horse, and we can be a little forgiving about it? I'm playing devil's advocate here. We got to talk about the Derby winner. Nick, does he have any chance in this spot?
No, I don't think so. Kenny McPeak is not known for having his glass half empty. But he didn't sound terribly optimistic when I spoke to him the other day, especially when the post came out. He said, that's going to be tough. Well, if he says it's going to be tough, that means it's going to be very tough in anyone else's language.
Well, that sounds about right. Randy, do you think he's a finished product, or that this just isn't the spot for him?
He could be a finished product. They wouldn't have shipped him all the way out there. And it was a crazy van ride. It was a 2-day van ride to get to California to run in the Malibu. And so that couldn't have helped him. But they wouldn't have sent him out there if they didn't think he was really in peak form and was really going to run well. And Kenny was very optimistic going into the Malibu. And by the time they got to the 5/16 pole, this horse was last, and not by a short margin. I mean, he was in a completely different race in the back of the pack. And to me, that was just a disastrously poor race with no real excuse. No, he's not a 7-furlong type horse, but he should have been a hell of a lot closer than that. And I think that's why Kenny is a little bit apprehensive about how he's going to run on Saturday.
That dynamic is tricky and you mentioned it with Guadabario too. When they stop breaking with any kind of alacrity and lose, it can really be a sign of a horse that's form is just heading the wrong way.
Some of the old traditionalists are going to shake their head about this, and but when you have a horse like Mystic Dan, that it's not easy to train a horse up to the Kentucky Derby, right? It's strenuous on the horse. And to run a huge race like he ran in the Derby, and then to come back 2 weeks later and gut it out again and lay it on the line in the Preakness, and then to come back in the Belmont. Nowadays, for a horse that's not a great big, robust horse, Mystic Dan's kind of a smallish type horse. You saw the way he ran in the Belmont, and now the Malibu. I think it might have knocked him for a loop.
Somewhere on Long Island, Stephen Chris just threw his slipper at his computer. And I'll let you guys fight about that some other time. But Jerry, any more of an optimistic take on the Derby winner here, or are we for negative Nellies?
Yeah, well, he doesn't appear in great form, but if you look back to his numbers, he's not as fast as some of these horses. It hasn't never been. In the only 2 races he's even close, he got through on the rail both times. It would take act of God for him to get through on the rail in this race, unless he takes back to last to do it. And if he does that, he's got no chance of catching up. So the post doesn't help. His recent form is not great. I don't think the race really suits a horse like him, especially from this post.
If you want optimism about Mystic Dan, Pete, get Robbie Alvarado on your podcast. Robbie gets on him in the morning, and he's very high on him right now. Yeah.
Good for him. We've covered the top of the market really well. I'm not going to keep you guys too much longer than I said, but I do want to give everybody a chance to say something about something at a longer price in here, because I do think there's some interesting long shots. I think there's a story to be told about a runner like Stronghold, even Skippy Longstocking running in this race for the 3rd year in a row. But just curious to know if you guys have one up your sleeve, something at a little bit of a price that might be interesting.
I didn't think that Stronghold was completely out of running a big race. I can't quite see him winning, but he's still improving, and quite a few of these aren't. And he's back to what I think is probably his optimum distance. You remember, if you stop the Derby, the top of the lane, he was going to be right in the mix. It traveled just about best of all, and not that one of the ones that wasn't that far off Silly Pace as well. So I do think he's quite a talented horse. It was a good effort over 7/8 last time. So I don't think he's completely unfeasible.
He ran the race Mystic Dan was supposed to in many ways. I think in the Malibu should be set up nicely for this. Jerry, how about you? Are you interested in anything at a big number in here?
That would be the only horse that I'd be interested in. It's somewhat of a price. He's tactical. He can be placed where he wants. I actually think the 1 1/8 could be stretching him just a little bit, but he's 1-1 and the Santa Anita Derby and the Penn Derby was second, so it's doable for him. But I don't think it's much farther than that. He's the one I think could pick up the pieces.
And I'll give a 3rd vote to Stronghold with an addition of Krupe maybe in the bottom of your superfectas.
Yeah.
He was 3rd in the race last year. I would throw Skippy Longstocking in there, but I don't like the post position. And he might be a little further back, I think, early as a result of that than they want him to be, because they're not going to send him like they did last year.
And after hearing you guys make the case about the pace maybe being a little stronger than people are expecting, he's really the one that could be got caught chasing if that develops, or just out of the comfort zone. The case for him, I think, would rely on the idea of him somehow just getting that easy stalking trip. And if he's not going to do that, it could be a long afternoon. But great to see a horse in this race for multiple years. Guys, really appreciate you coming on here. We're going to get much more from you on the NBC broadcast. I put in the hours plug before. Did I miss anything? And I'm not going to ask you, Randy, because I know you probably don't even know the schedule yet. But Jerry, did I hit all the NBC notes correctly? Anything we should add?
Yeah, I was amazed that you didn't ask when it's on. You always ask our times, and you knew right off the jump.
When it's one station, it's easier. When it's the back and the fourth, when you're on for 6 hours, I lose it. The bandwidth gets too much.
There you go.
It's 4:30 Eastern. I said 2:30 before, or did I say 4:30? I don't remember.
You said 2:30. It's 4:30 to 6 Eastern.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
And by the way, you joked earlier about Nick jogging with his jogging outfit. Pete, if you ever see Nick, me, or Jerry running, call the police.
There's someone chasing you? Is that
someone's behind us, and they're probably armed? So,
guys, can't wait for Saturday. It's going to be a great day. Thanks so much to our friends at First for sponsoring the show, and our friends at NBC for helping to arrange it. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. may you win all your Pegasus Day photos.